that
Mhm.
first step of I'm coming out of the dark and into the light, and I'm going to talk to someone. And sometimes that first step is to tell me or to tell you. And once people take that first step, that second step is easier. It's not easy, but it's easier.
Welcome to the Next Level Women podcast, where powerhouse women break limits, claim their worth, and rise beyond good enough. I'm Jennifer Perri, a transformational coach, best-selling author, and fierce advocate for women reclaiming their power. After overcoming adversity from an abusive marriage to Guillain-Barré syndrome, I've made it my mission to help women rise above limiting beliefs, unlock their genius, and create lives of freedom, ease, and fulfillment. Each week, I sit down with 6- and 7-figure female entrepreneurs, executives, and visionaries who are rewriting the rules of success, building lasting impact, and owning their brilliance. Together, we'll share strategies, breakthroughs, and unfiltered conversations designed to inspire your clarity, confidence, and next level power. This isn't just another business podcast. It's where transformation meets legacy and where unstoppable women rise. Welcome to the Next Level Women podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Next Level Women podcast, where women stop waiting and start choosing what's next. I'm your host, Jennifer Perri. I'm a reinvention strategist, a coach, an author, and the CEO of Shiro Life and Empowerment Coaching. Each week, I sit down with powerful women who are redefining success and building lives on their terms. And this week, and this conversation is going to be a little different because we're talking about something that most people avoid, and that's grief and loss and what it really looks like to keep going when life doesn't go the way that you planned. And I am very excited to have our guest today, AnneMoss Rogers, who has lived through the unimaginable. After losing her son Charles, she made the courageous decision to turn her pain into purpose, helping others navigate mental health, grief, and emotional resilience with honesty and compassion. AnneMoss, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy that you are here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And for also, you bring on a lot of really brave topics, and I really admire that. So thank you.
Well, we are going to. I'm going to brag on you just a little bit more because I feel like I didn't do enough of that. To,
Mhm.
but Ann Moss is a mental health advocate, suicide prevention speaker, TEDx speaker, and you do need to go out to her website and watch her TEDx. It is so powerful. So you need to do that. And she's also an award-winning author who transformed profound personal loss into meaningful education and healing for others. After losing her son Charles to addiction and suicide, AnneMoss devoted her life to helping people navigate grief, mental health struggles, and emotional resilience with honesty, compassion, and humanity. I want to just start off with you just telling us a little bit more about yourself, where you are located at in the world, and just really a little bit about your story.
Okay. So I am currently live in Richmond, Virginia, and I know a lot of people listening to this will think, "Oh my gosh, she's from upstate New York." She totally fooled me. Oh, it's not as southern as it used to be. I used to do radio commercials, and I would be recording in the recording studio, and they would get my voice and be like, "I cannot be that southern." But anyway, and that like was a former life, you know. So I yeah, basically, when I came out of school, I went into marketing and advertising, and then segued into digital marketing a little later. Was owning a digital marketing firm, and that is not at all what I do today. Because after my son's death by suicide, I just thought all that was pointless. I use those skills now to promote the cause and myself and different events related to them. But, there was just this huge tectonic shift in my entire life, and everything is now defined before his death and after his death. So he was 20 when he died. He just turned 20. He'd been addicted to heroin. And it was while he was going through withdrawal that he took his own life in just a really shocking way. And it was so unbelievable that the funniest, most popular kid in school would have died by suicide. And of course, the first thing I think is, how could I be such a lousy mother that my child would leave me this way? But it really wasn't about me at all. I didn't understand anything about suicide, and it would be a really long time before I would. And I'm very obsessive by nature. And I just became obsessed with learning everything I could. I mean, I am constantly taking training, reading books, and I have to force myself not to be immersed in it like all the time. And I've learned that balance. Got real close to burnout at one point, and I'm like, oh, I got to pull it back. And I'm sure you can understand that, because I'm sure along in your journey, you may have kind of gotten close to that line too, of like, oh, yeah. I'm in this way too deep, and I've got to balance it a little bit more. So I'm really focused on trying to maintain that balance now of exercise, eating right, getting sleep, seeing my friends, going on vacation, and also being very obsessive about mental health, suicide prevention, post traumatic growth, grief, and really the topics no one wants to talk about.
That you're right. And you speak so openly about grief and suicide and mental health with just extraordinary honesty. And what did it take emotionally for you to kind of stop hiding what had happened with Charles and really step forward with his story and sharing it publicly?
Wow. I did one article when he was alive. He was away at boarding school. And people for 2 years came up to me whispering, our family is going through that too. So it was the mental health issues of a child. And then what I didn't realize is that he would find out about it when he came back home a year and a half later. I'm like, you'll never see this. It's in the local paper. Well, he did hear about it because it was so popular, and it went semi viral, I'd say. And that was the first time. But then his reaction to that and my guilt around sharing it, well, I kind of went back into this little cloister closet, because it's my story to tell, but he's involved. And I didn't ask his permission. And I still regret that I did not do that. So after he died, I was still struggling, of course, was struggling even more. And I was like, enough of this crap. I'm not keeping it in anymore. I must talk about this because nobody else is.
Mm.
And no one was really telling their story from the family point of view at that point, not very loudly and not very directly. So my first thing that I did was I wrote a newspaper article, and took me 6 months to write it. And I thought, why is it writing? Why is it taking me so long to write 1,200 words, right? And that's because while writing it, I was processing all those difficult emotions: anger, sadness, irritability, despair, lack of motivation, all those things. And even sometimes joy. But anger was a highly present one early on with me. And I wasn't angry at him. My older son was, and I accept that as part of his grieving process. I was angry at the world. I was angry at people because they weren't letting me talk about my child, mostly because of the way he died. So you think of a child who dies from cancer, there's this sort of sweet vignette around their picture. And maybe with somebody who dies by suicide, they're in a frame with all these broken cracks
Mm.
on it. So
That's so true.
it's so different. And so people would avoid talking about it. And it made me feel like I buried my child all over again.
Mm.
So when the newspaper article was published, and I did forget to tell my husband that I wrote it when it was like in the newspaper. I'm like, it's going to be on the front page of the Sunday paper. So when they called to tell me it was published, that was the first thing I did is I reached out to him after I brought myself down from a panic attack and told him about it because writing it felt really good, turning it in felt really good, but when it finally published, I was terrified because I thought, well, I've done it now. I mean, people are going to judge me. And I'm like, what do I, and then I was like, what do you care, Emma? So I had these little alter ego conversations. And I'm like, you don't give a flip about that anymore, remember? And it went viral because other people had read their story and mine over that time. And there were 3,000 comments. And I thought, okay, other people are going through this. This is important. And that did kind of light a fire in me. And from there, I struggled, went down the wrong way, was ED of a mental health organization for 2 years, hated it. So I tried on different things and I kept going back to speaking. And the first time I spoke, I felt like Charles was with me. And of course, that was addicted. I was just like, I have to do this. This is where I need to be. I need to be teaching people because that marketing background allowed me to break down some really complicated subject into sound bites that people could understand, or 1, 2, 3 steps, or here's the first thing you need to do, or outline it in a picture. And those skills really helped me translate that to people. And so I called my blog Emotionally Naked because I kept writing and writing. And one thing you'll find out when you are in a place of despair is that your writing is probably better than it's ever been in your whole life. And I look back at those posts and I'm like, wow. And I'm just really proud of myself. I'm like, gosh, I wonder if I could write to that standard now. And I'd like to think that I could. But it was the writing really helped me work through those difficult first, and the first 3 years, I'd say I was kind of completely underwater.
Well, and with 3,000 comments, it just goes to show you how many people were probably just waiting for someone to say something or waiting for the topic to almost be permission to talk about it. Because you're right,
Right.
there is a complete, even nowadays, there's still a stigma around talking about suicide or talking about there being mental health issues or talking about just in general. And
Yeah,
you
or even
would hope.
addiction.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You would hope that we could get to a point where people like you are doing what you're doing and you're shouting it from the rooftops because how many people's lives, we were talking about that before we started recording, how many people's lives did you say indirectly or directly? I mean, you don't know, but I guarantee
No.
you there were a lot probably because you were giving it from a perspective of what you went through as a mother, you went through as a family, you went through losing your son. Now you're advocating. And what as in your story, what do you think has been the most understood piece, the most misunderstood piece of it?
I think part of it is that certain people will say things like, "Oh, she's still talking about that." If she just let go of her grief, she could move forward, not understanding that this is my move forward, and it is making me happy. I'm talking about suicide and it is making me happy. I'm talking about addiction and it is making me happy. And why is it making me happy? Because people reach out and, some I've lost a couple that have reached out over the years. But for the most part, 99% of those are still here and still reach back out and say, thank you for your support just by email or just by an answering on a YouTube comment. I felt seen and I felt heard, and that turned around my thinking. And I'm like, even articles I've written where they'll say something like, I read this 5 years ago and it changed my life and turned things around. And I know you get letters like that too. And that's what fills me back up. And when I was speaking for a while and I hit that roadblock of I can't keep telling this story, I devised sort of a solution for that. And I pass out index cards to the audience. And I ask them to list one thing they've learned at the end and to put it in the middle of the table. And then that's their gift to me. And I have these baskets that are behind me, have those cards in them because I
Oh,
have
wow.
5, 6, 10,000. I don't even know how many, but I got a lot. And I read every single one of them. And they fill me back up and they remind me of why I do what I do. And that worked. And I'm really shocked that something so simple works so beautifully. And it's also helped me to craft a better presentation. So I didn't even think of that part. So I can see what parts really resonate with people, but also what's fascinating is to see what people take away. What is their takeaway? And it's so individual. And it's so beautiful for them to share. And some of them come up to me and say, I've never told this story to anyone. And that right there, Jennifer, is what we're looking for. That
Mm.
first step of I'm coming out of the dark and into the light, and I'm going to talk to someone. And sometimes that first step is to tell me or to tell you. And once people take that first step, that second step is easier. It's not easy, but it's easier.
That is so true. That is so true. Because and then we were talking about something else too, was when you and I first connected, um, you were talking about how things had happened in your life and how your resilience built. And
Yeah,
it didn't mean that the things aren't going to still come at you, but your rebound is a little bit quicker the next time because we
it
both have
is.
had tragedies in our life that we are using for good. And I think that what you just said is that first step. I've had women come up to me at seminars. One woman specific, I'll never forget her. She was going to kill herself that night because that was the only way she could get out of a domestic situation. That was it. She had dropped her children off at her mother's. She had came to my seminar because her friend invited her to come. It was a dinner seminar. So she thought, I'm going to spend time with my friend. I'm going to have a nice dinner, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to take my life. And midway through, and I had just started letting a little bit more of my story out, my own personal struggle with living in an abusive marriage. I didn't really talk about it a lot. And I started to, this was probably the second or third time I had shared it. And as I was talking, she was directly in my line of sight. And I could see her head come up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then she was just sobbing. And at some point, I saw her leave. And I thought, oh my gosh, I said something, she left. At the end of the presentation, I had people all around me. She came right to me, pushing through everybody else, and just cried, hugged me. She said, I was going to take my life tonight, and you gave me hope that I can get out of this. So you're right. It's the first conversation. It's feeling comfortable enough to find the right people that you can reach out and you can have that conversation with. And one of the things you talk about too is building an emotional muscle. And what does that look like in real life? Especially if somebody feels like the people that we have encountered who feel like they're barely holding it on, like barely able to take a next step.
Oh, I think it's having that leap of faith and taking a first step. Maybe, maybe our stories have validated them enough to take that first step, to choose a friend and tell what you're comfortable telling. It doesn't have to be the whole ugly thing if you're not ready to do that, but it can evolve to that. So think about who you're going to tell and who would you trust. So it isn't going to be that judgy friend that every time you say something, they have 5 or 10 fixes for you and they're willing to write them down and tell you how brilliantly they fixed it. That's not the friend. You
Mm-mm.
want the friend that will shut up, listen, and allow you to feel heard and seen and doesn't immediately start giving you solutions, but sits with you in your tragedy, is willing to hear you out. Even if they have no idea of what to do, you really lead with your ear and with empathy. Those two things first. So, building emotional muscle, it's really one of the most important things is to feel your feelings. So here's what happens. You get a difficult feeling like you're ambushed by grief. It takes you to the floor. Well, a lot of people, instead of experiencing the grief or whatever episode that they want, they'll go straight to distraction, skipping the part in the middle where they're sitting with their feelings for a few seconds. What you're cutting out is the healing part because that pain has purpose and it's emotional healing. That's where the good stuff happens and that's where it hurts the most. But your intense feelings, they're gonna kind of go like that and they're gonna last about 60 to 90 seconds for the most part. You can do 60 to 90 seconds and it feels longer and then it will lift. That's when you distract yourself with a healthy coping strategy. And a healthy coping strategy is not a glass of wine, it is not a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. It's taking a walk with a friend. It is writing, gardening, rock climbing, whatever your passions are, that's what it is. And you can identify what your coping strategies are. And that's what's really important is that you identify what they are.
What are some signs, maybe more subtle signs that someone could be projecting that might give you like kind of the feeling that they're really struggling with something? I think I've gotten a little bit better. I can identify in other people certain things because I've experienced them. And then, even now 30 years later, from a horrible domestic marriage, I can still see it. I can still tell, when somebody is maybe
Same.
potentially in it. Um,
Yeah.
from your perspective, what are some signs, quiet things that you notice that is kind of like a hey, there could be an issue here. And if you do, like once you notice what those signs are, how do you step in and try to help somebody? We live in a world where people would get beat up on the street and nobody wants to intervene. Nobody wants to step in, and I don't want to be one of those people ever. And I want to help people who are healing to watch for signs in other people. But what are some silent things that you see that people could be kind of proactively looking for in their friends and loved ones?
Well, a lot of times, spurts of anger and irritability. especially with your men, indicates, a depression or sense of despair, the anger and irritability. Another one is that friend that's always happy go lucky. With me, I took a bunch of pictures, and in that batch of pictures, there were some places that I caught Charles in a moment of despair where the camera seemed to have seen what I was missing. And I discounted that. It's like, oh, it was a bad shot. And when I go back now, it's clearly despair because he was trying to keep on that mask of a clown. And it's impossible to keep it on at all times. It does drop. And we tend to dismiss it. Comments like, well, I can't do this anymore. Well, never mind. I won't be around tomorrow anyway. Just kind of offhand jokes that they're laying out clues. They may put something online that sounds like a goodbye letter. I love all my friends. You all have been so wonderful. And a lot of people will kind of go, oh, thank you so much, when it's like, this is a goodbye letter. You
Right,
need to
right,
reach
right,
out.
right.
And then it's like, you know, maybe it's nothing, but I feel like something is going on with you. And I would just want to listen and be there. And I don't have all the answers, but maybe if there are answers, we can figure them out together. But first of all, I just want to hear what's going on with you. And I don't want to hear I'm fine when you're not fine. So I'm going to shut up now and I'm going to let you do the talking. So tell me what's going on. Tell me how you feel. I'm listening is really a magic phrase to sort of get to, and they may tell you or they may not. But here's the thing, they're dying to tell someone.
Sure.
And they're more likely to tell you if you ask. If during that conversation you feel in your gut, wow, something's really going on here, you should ask the question, are you thinking about suicide? Second option, are you thinking about killing yourself? Do not ask, are you thinking about harming yourself? That's self harm, that's different. You've got to ask directly. And by asking directly, you're not planting the idea in their head. It's
Right.
either there or it's not.
Right.
And then some people are like, well, somebody might get mad. Remote possibility. I've asked hundreds of times. I had one person get irritated with me. I don't care. I'd rather
Well,
I'd
yeah,
rather
yeah,
be alive and mad at
mad at
me
you.
than
Right,
dead.
right. Exactly. No, I agree with you. And for somebody who stumbles across this and they're that person and they're listening to all our conversation and they're finding themselves in the middle of this, what what do you want them to hear from what we're talking about? What would be a message to them?
First message is, there is nothing more devastating than a loss by suicide. It's been 11 years. I will never, ever get over it. I'll never, ever move on and in a way that I'll leave the whole pain thing behind. The agony that my whole family has been through, all of his friends, this grief is real. You can work through this, but you have got to get support. Sitting around in isolation, hoping it'll get better on its own, is not how we have advanced as humans. We have advanced by connecting with one another. Pick that one trusted adult. Tell them what you're feeling right now. what you're comfortable talking about right at first. And then maybe together you can take that next step to call 988, call a county hotline, call a warm line. And by the way, those are at, I think, warmline.org or warm lines. I don't remember if plural or not. Almost every state in the United States has one. And you can just talk to people who've also been through stuff. A lot of them have been through addiction, domestic abuse, um, suicidal thoughts, mental illness. And I know a lot of the people who are in the warm line in Virginia, and those are the people that make up mostly who's there. So they've been through stuff, and they will listen and allow you to feel heard, and they're trained, but they're peers. They're not going to call the police, and ask you a lot of personal questions. And if they do, you don't have to answer them. Tell someone and do it. It's a hard step to take. And I am not going to undermine how difficult that step is. But speaking out takes a lot of courage. And it's taken you a lot of courage to get through those periods when you've struggled. And I think people who have suicidal thoughts, I know you never asked for them. And it's something genetic in your head, in your brain, that not everybody has. And you have lived through them and managed to get to the other side, probably more than once. That's remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. And that took strength. I don't know how I'd react if I had ever had those thoughts. I really don't.
You are a speaker, you're a writer. I can't tell you enough. Please go and listen to her TED Talk. Please. It's like 6 minutes, 3 seconds.
6 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. Please go listen to it. I listened to it
Can't
as I was getting to learn a little bit more about AnneMoss, and I was just so profoundly affected by it. Please go watch it. All the information obviously is going to be, in the description and everything, but you also are, I think, starting to what is the next project you're working on? Because I think you're working on a retreats or
I am a
yeah.
retreat, and it's called The Next Chapter, and it'll be in January, and it's going to be 3 half days virtually. It may someday be in person, but if it's in January, it's going to be virtual because who wants to fly somewhere in January, right?
Unless you're having it in like the Bahamas or
Right. If you can fly, the
right,
trouble
right.
is that wherever you are, you
The
might not be able
snow,
to
yeah.
fly.
Yeah.
So it is for people trying to find purpose after profound loss. So a lot of people want to make meaning, and that is part of their healing process. And they're frustrated and don't know what that thing is. And it is, going to be about them extracting what are your strengths and what is that thing that you want to create. So a lot of people naturally go to nonprofit. Well, I can tell you, I did ED of a nonprofit, didn't start my own, but I quickly found out I love the programming. I love talking to the people. I hate the accounting. I hate the fundraising. I hate the event planning. And the board, managing the board. Oh my gosh. So that's 50% or more of the job, right?
Mm.
So I'm like, I really don't want to be in a job where I really dislike a good 60% of what has to be done. And and what I did is I set some goals, and then, I said, I'm going to have to leave and do something else because this isn't filling my cup. But so, yeah, it's the retreat. And then from there, I really want to develop a group that meets a couple of times a month to kind of keep you on that path of figuring out what it is, because there's a lot of guilt that goes with that sometimes. Like, and I have people who accuse me of this now. like you're trying to make money off your son's death. I made a whole lot more money in advertising than I do now. And I mean, I may make about the same now, but it took me 10 years, 9 years to get there. So
Right.
there were years I made nothing. So I'm not doing this to become a millionaire. And the fact that I'm making a living finally, isn't doesn't mean that, I'm trying to spark off his death. So I think a lot of people really want to figure out that next step and post-traumatic growth, building that emotional muscle and learning to be emotionally naked, you know?
I could talk to you for another 3 hours. I really could. I just
We
think
we could.
because your story is, I mean, your story is so amazing, just you as a woman and what you're doing. And there's no doubt that your son is by your side in all of this and the legacy that you are building for him and the lives that both of you are saving. There's no doubt whatsoever. Oh, he's so handsome.
Isn't he?
Very, very handsome. And
I
I just,
don't have that. I don't have it behind me because it gets blurry. It doesn't, my
oh,
camera doesn't know what to focus
oh,
on. Go
oh.
ahead. I'm sorry to
But
interrupt.
no, but I think what you're talking about and the way that you're talking about it and how you're pouring yourself into the lives of other people and you're asking them if they're okay and you're asking them if they've ever thought about this or they're currently thinking. I think all of those, why not ask those questions? Why not
Right.
stand on Charles's story instead of hiding behind it? I mean, that's what we should do. People learn from stories. And if people want to
Exactly.
connect with you, or they want to have you come and speak for them, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Probably they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm most active there, and we kind of have a group there to amplify, everything about this subject. Google AnneMoss Rogers, and you'll find me. I'm at Mental Health Awareness Education. I have a newsletter that goes out, and so mostly LinkedIn, YouTube, my website, and my name.
And we will have all of that information in the description. And I can't thank you enough for coming
Oh,
on and being a guest. I
thank
really
you.
can't. It's been an amazing, amazing conversation, and I know it won't be our last for sure.
That'd
There's
be
no doubt in
awesome.
my mind. But as we get ready to wrap up today, and as you move on with your day, I'd just like to remember this: the woman you're becoming is built on the decisions that you make next. And until we meet again, keep doing the work, keep choosing yourself and keep rising into the life that's calling you. I'll be here every step of the way, guiding you to your next level. Thank you again, AnneMoss. Thank you, everybody who has joined in. And please go out and connect with this incredible woman and hear her story. And we will be back again next week with another episode. Thank you.